Hi folks, and welcome to this very special edition of FTD Talk. Special for two reasons. First and foremost, you will notice that I am not John James, the usual host of this programme. My name is Nick, and like John, I am an advocate and survivor of female perpetrated domestic violence. So John and I first became associated because I think I was one of the first interviewees on his FTD Talk programme. On his podcast. So I've kept in touch ever since, and I recently got round to reading his fabulous book From the Darkness, and as a result of that I said to John, look, I've got some questions that I'd really like to ask about your experiences, and he kindly agreed that it would be a reasonably good idea to give it a shot. So that's what today's episode is. I'm going to do a deep dive into this and talk to John about some of his experiences and his recovery since. And I hope that any listeners, watchers will find that a really fascinating insight into what it's like to be a victim, and some top tips really in terms of recovery from it. So really looking forward to talking to John. Can't wait to do the interview, and I hope everybody enjoys this different episode.
Little bird, won't you sing for me? I wanna hear your song through the cypress trees. I'm a blue.
Well, first of all, thanks, John, for agreeing to do this. I think it's a great opportunity for me to turn the tables on you and throw some questions at you for a change, because you're normally the one doing all the questions. So
yeah, and you were the very first guest on this show, so.
Yes, apparently. So,
yeah.
Well, what a great honour. And as I said, I've followed your story ever since, John. I find your podcast really interesting. It's lovely to hear the stories that people tell, and long may it continue, quite frankly. So okay, to start off with then, John, I just want to say a few sort of like a disclaimer, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
And the first disclaimer is that I've pre-planned some questions, and when I've reread them, there are some questions in there that if I was asked those questions, I might think to myself that I'm being victim blamed a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm doing it. I want you to know that I'm not doing that. I'm doing it because they're the sorts of things that in my head as a victim, I would expect to be asked and sort of justify. So I'm kind of playing devil's advocate a bit. If that's
cool,
okay.
Yeah.
That's all right. And then obviously the other thing is, we're going to touch on what's quite a difficult, challenging story. So obviously anybody watching or listening to this, there's some possible trigger warnings in there, and I'm sure you'll do the usual, John. You'll signpost ways in which people can find support if they find something difficult or challenging in this video. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's cool.
Good. Okay. Well, look, first and foremost, I found your book really compelling, really enjoyable.
Thank you.
Well, if enjoyable is the right word, I said enjoyable to you, but enjoyable in the way that, you know, in the spirit that I mean it. And what I found about it really, what touched me when I started the book, is right from the outset, you put a little note to the reader about that, you know, you sort of said, I think you said something on the lines of that, you know, you're not perfect and that you've got faults. And I thought it was really interesting how you set the scene at the start of the book, that you were clearly wanting to lay it all out there, warts and all, and be very honest. And I found that very endearing at the start. So that was a nice thing. So the other thing that struck me reading the book, John, is that you recollect events really well. So
thanks.
how did you do that?
I tried, like at the beginning of the book, I say that I try and do things without hindsight. I try and leave that out there, you know, if only I knew, and things like that. And I wanted to put the reader in the position that I was in. Yeah. So it did hurt when I wrote the book, to be fair, because it wasn't that long after you know, I'd got over everything. And to relive it again, it did hurt, but that's what I needed. I needed to make the reader understand what I was feeling and what I went through. So not only did I just tell the story, I tried to say what was in my head and what I was feeling at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. But did when it was all going on, did you keep a diary at the time, or have you just been able to sort of, recall what happened?
It was burned into my brain.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
It was so intense that
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
it was just there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. And in fact, actually, one of the first chapters is your. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you're having a nightmare, aren't you? And
Yeah.
as a reader, it's kind of it's a pretty scary nightmare that you're having. So I take it that nightmare is fueled by what preceded.
Yeah, I mean that is the nightmare that I had. It isn't something for dramatic purposes. I did have that nightmare that she was like climbing on top of me and stabbing me and stuff. And I had more than just the one. It was like, I had and waking nightmares as well. I'd walk in rooms and I'd see myself on the other side of the room going through what I went through as well. So
Gosh.
yeah.
I mean, because there are events in the book that make that nightmare pretty much reality.
Yeah. And it did. I mean, she didn't climb on top of me and stab me like in the nightmare, but if I think if it went on, that would have probably happened.
It would, yes. Yeah, I think you're right. We'll come back later to some of the after effects. So those sort of nightmares. I mean, as I said, as a survivor myself, that's something that I'm familiar with. So I get where you're coming from. So your marriage to Lizzie, to your first wife, that was quite a long marriage, wasn't it? So correct me if I'm wrong, that 19 years. 19 years, wow.
Yeah.
So again, I mean, what I get from that is you're clearly a very loyal person. I mean, I know that at the end of that marriage, things kind of you sort of drifted apart and that went, but that's still a hefty commitment, isn't it? So it was that a safe relationship, was it, John, overall?
It was. I don't know. I don't know why that because that happened really fast as well. But I think that was my doing that it happened really fast. I thought, I found somebody who really likes me. I'll get married to this person, And and for the first 10 years, it was really, really good. It was very good. And then the last 8 years, so like basically half the marriage, was drifting further and further apart. And we still talk now. And she is a lovely, lovely person. A lot of that, and I do say it in the book, that a lot of that, it was me. I was very selfish within that marriage. And but it was eventually Monica who broke us up. So well, I broke us up by leaving her for Monica, but
okay. No, but I just think, as a reader, it's interesting that you're not someone that sort of bounces from relationship to relationship. You are somebody that can handle stability and commitment, and that's a substantial marriage that you had there. And again, it seems that it was a safe one where neither of you came to any harm, and so that's just interesting. Just interested as an outside observer. So you met your abuser Monica at work. So do you think that the relationship that you had with Monica and how that developed, do you think the fact that you were vulnerable at the time, i.e. unhappy within your marriage at that moment, or do you think under any circumstances you and Monica would have got together?
I think it was definitely the fact that I was vulnerable, because before we got together, Monica knew everything about me because we worked together. And and she gained my trust very quickly indeed. And I told her everything. I told her about, the lack of intimacy in my marriage, the fact that I would go to concerts on my own, because my wife didn't want to go with me. And she was like, I've never been to a concert before. I'd love to go to a concert with you. And then she made it very clear that if anything did happen, then intimacy was definitely on the table. So everything that I'd missing in my marriage, she offered.
Yeah. I just wonder. I'm hoping that as part of this chat, John, there are some, lessons that can be shared, with listeners and viewers, and that sort of vulnerability. When you're in a vulnerable position like that, sometimes you do have to be really aware that how people can take advantage of you, can't they? They can exploit that. Very much so.
And I was too naive to see that, I think.
Yeah.
And I also think that there would have been, if I'd seen him, there would have been a lot of red flags there. But I think you can write as many books as you want on spotting red flags, but when you're in it, you can't see them.
No, absolutely. And again, I'm not sort of saying it to try and beat you over the head with it, because we've all been, I could 100% associate with that, and I'm sure many other survivors and victims can too. So it seems at the start of the relationship there was a lot of I'll use the words will she, won't she. I don't know if that means anything with you, but I noticed, like, for instance, there's a text message in I'm just looking on page 63 here, and so you'd arranged to meet up. This is kind of at the start of the relationship, right at the start, and you arranged to meet up and everything was like great, okay, it's going, and then you get a text saying, oh, I'm really sorry, I've gone home, it's not a good idea we meet up. And there seems to be a lot of that sort of like push-pull. And I just wonder if that was a early sign that she's messing with your head a bit.
I didn't see it as that though.
No.
I was just really disappointed because of if how much I liked her and how quickly I liked her. So I was just very disappointed. So I never saw it as anything really, apart from her getting cold feet.
Right. And when you look back on that now, do you think that it was just getting cold feet, or do you think she was trying to mess with you a bit?
I think it was cold feet. I really do. I don't think she was trying to mess with my head at that particular point.
Okay, so you wouldn't call that red wrong. Flag. Yeah. Okay. I just what's interesting as well is you come across as quite self-deprecating at times in your book. Now, don't get me wrong. I like, for instance, you'd say something like, and I'm paraphrasing here, but you say something like, oh, am I good enough to be with this woman or something? And it kind of like suggests that your confidence isn't at its highest at that moment. That's self-confidence. Yeah. I mean, I personally find it a really endearing human trait. So it's not a criticism in any way. But I wonder if you think that as a perpetrator, she sniffed that vulnerability out.
Yeah, I do
think that made you.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so I do think that. I think that was one of the things that drew her to me, was my vulnerability. Through that vulnerability, I think I was very easy to manipulate. Definitely.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Right. So, yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? That's yeah. So, do you think if you at the time, and it's difficult because we're going back here, but do you think at the time, if you did have that greater self-confidence, self-belief, you might have been a bit more assertive?
I think if I'd had the confidence, I think I might have sorted my marriage out, to be fair.
Right.
So I wouldn't even got. I would have been flattered by her advances, but I wouldn't have carried it out. So I think if I'd had the confidence, then I think I would have sorted my marriage out.
Yeah. Sure. Right. Interesting. Monica mentions that she had an abusive father.
Yeah.
What part do you well, first of all, strange question, this one, so forgive me if this sounds offensive, but what truth do you think there was around that backstory? And what part do you think that played in her behavior and your feelings for her? So, for example, she suggested, and it was to your shock at the time, she said something like and she's talking about herself, I'm going to die on the street like my father did. And she'd say quite emotive things like that. So
Yeah.
I'm just trying to explore, really, like, do you think she said those things because that's what she genuinely felt? Or do you think this was a kind of, again, playing on your emotions kind of thing?
I think it was manipulative. I think she was definitely playing me at that time. I don't know how truthful she was.
Yeah.
I know she was brought up in Romania at the time of Ceausescu, so I know that's true. And I know the history of Romania and Ceausescu, so I do know it was hard. I went to visit Romania with her, went to visit her son and her mother, and I saw the squalor that they lived in.
Right.
So I know that's true. And excuse me, her mum and son lived in a one room apartment. And it was like his son's bed, a wardrobe in her mother's bed, and the kitchen at the bottom of the bed. That was it.
Gosh.
And it was a shared shower room with everybody else in the building, and it was rat infested. So I know all that is true.
Yeah.
The rest of it, I don't know. I don't know if it was true or not. But it was definitely emotive, and I know I didn't know it at the time, but looking back on it from very early on, it was like emotional blackmail all the way through. She did a lot of things, like when I talk about I went downstairs because I didn't know where she was, and I found her lying on the kitchen floor crying with toothache.
Yeah.
Very, very manipulative.
Yeah, I've got a question about that later, actually. No, it's okay. No, because it's interesting. Yeah. No, I mean, again, you got to remember, I'm coming from a reader's perspective. I've read your book, and I am thinking, when I read some of these passages, I'm thinking, oh, so, she's telling you this. I wonder if you're writing that as an author, as in, this is true, or you're just writing it because that's how it was presented to you. But as a reader, I am left thinking, is she saying that to play on the heartstrings and to manipulate you, or is she saying that because this is a true story that she's sharing with you as a lover?
And I think that's why I wrote it like I did. I was writing it as if it's true, because that's how it was presented to me, as truth, but I don't know. I have no idea.
No, and okay. No, it's really interesting, John. So thank you. On the honesty question, then, so still on this, she said she had a boyfriend and he was in Romania when you met.
Yeah.
And again, sometimes as a reader, you're left wondering if these subplots were all part of this manipulation. So, do you know if there was truth in that she did have this boyfriend and that she was going to finish with him and that kind of?
Yeah, she had a boyfriend, because while I was in Birmingham and we were sitting in a coffee shop, and she actually texted him and dumped him.
Okay.
Right there.
Okay.
And
right.
So
as you do.
Yeah. As any normal healthy person would do. So she texted him and she dumped him, and she said, I found somebody else, because he was living with her at the time. He was just in Romania for visiting. So she said to him, I found somebody else. Your suitcase will be outside the door.
Gosh.
So it came back to being chucked out, really.
Right. And other than obviously that type of text message, which is very curt and arguably inappropriate, do you know if she mistreated him in any way? Do you know if there's any sort of backstory there or history there that you know of?
I don't know what she did to him. I know that she told him. Yeah, she did mistreat him, actually, because I know that she told him that he smelt all the time. And she told him he was what was it she used to say to him? She used to say he was fucking useless all the time. But when we split up, and she moved me into the house while he was still kipping in the lounge. So, and me being an idiot did that, you know. So she moved
You're
me
in love, John. You're in love, mate.
Well, yeah, exactly. I thought it was anyway. So
Yeah.
she moves me in while he's still there, but he's still obsessed with her.
Right.
And she told me that she's always finished with guys. They've never finished with her, and she's always stayed in touch. Which I know she was in touch with a couple of boyfriends, ex-boyfriends. So I don't know what hold she had over him, but yeah, they were there still.
But well, yeah, I mean, it's this thing, isn't it, about you know, the experience that I've had in terms of personal experience, yourself, and speaking with other victims. It's not the first time these abusers do it. It's not the last, is it? No. There's a pattern.
Yeah.
And you kind of, you know, you think that you're the new person on the scene that's going to fix everything and cure it. But
that's what I did think. I thought I could fix her. I really thought I was the one who could fix her, but I was wrong.
Yeah, I mean, and again, we're early in the relationship here with Monica in terms of timeline, John, and you said in your book, you used the word intimidate. You said that Monica intimidates you, and I know at that part in the book you are actually talking about the sexual relationship that you developed.
Yeah.
But just as a general question, in what way, and we're talking about the early phase here in particular, in what way did she intimidate you?
She was she came across as, and you see this in the book where she changes just like that. And she came across as very shy, very vulnerable. Although the things she says about getting into adult entertainment industry and other things she said to me, that's not the mind of a vulnerable, weak person. But so you got the dichotomy there.
Yeah.
But as soon as we got into that hotel room, she changed, and she was very, very sexual then. And from that moment on, she intimidated me because she turned from the weak, vulnerable Monica into somebody who was very strong, very confident, very assertive. So yeah, it was very intimidating. Especially because of the shock between the two.
Because of the difference.
Yeah.
So what was she like socially then? If you were in a group, were you with other people? Would she be particularly like, she'd come across as pleasant, shy, or, you know, how confident? How would she be?
She'd come across as very shy, but now and then the mask would drop. Like, for instance, a friend of mine gave us a lift home from work one day. And he was playing some music, and the speakers were terrible in his car. And she just leaned over to the driver's seat and said, "Your fucking speakers are shit." And my mate was like, "Holy crap!" It's like, where did that come from? You know. And he said to me after that, he said, "Don't let her in my fucking car again. I'm not giving her a lift home again." And
how to make friends and influence people.
Yeah, and you would see that mask drop every now and then.
Right,
you know.
Right.
But
gosh,
most of the time she was come across as very sweet and vulnerable. But yeah, you saw it every now and then.
Right. It was clearly a steamy affair between you and her.
Yeah.
Did she use sex to control you or the relationship?
Yeah, I think that's why, because one girl who read the book said, "Jesus, John, this is like 50 Shades of John." Yeah. And I said, yeah, but the reason that I put that in there...
I did get hot under the collar a few times, John. You're a bit close to the edge.
The reason that I put that in there is because you do see later on that she uses that against me. She's very, very sexually overt when she wants something, and she's very cold and distant, and, you know, insulting me with "Oh, when you touch me, I'll feel sick." You know, so it was used as a controlling tool. So that's why there's, I guess, so much of it.
Yeah, I mean, this hot and cold features really strong, doesn't it? So like I said, the text messages that, well, one moment it love bombing you with a lovely text, the next it's kind of, you're a selfish bastard or whatever, and then the same sort of in the bedroom as well. It kind of reflects itself. So that's clearly a feature of this relationship, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
And actually, that is my next question about the hot and cold. So, one moment it was okay for you to go out, for example, and the next you were texted, so be told you were a selfish bastard, or you were stonewalled, or so can you tell us about how this tested you mentally and emotionally, this kind of on and off type of thing?
Well, the thing is, when I used to go places like I went to, in the book, I described me going to a Jimmy Carr concert, which I'd wanted to go to for years. And I bought the tickets way before we met. I bought them 12 months in advance. And when it come to me going, there was no way that I was right at the beginning of the relationship. So there was no way I was going to not go. But the trouble I got for going, the text saying I was a selfish bastard, saying even before I went, it was, I need you here. But she wouldn't tell me why she needed me there. And it was just to prevent me from going.
Yeah.
So when I was there, it wasn't an enjoyable gig at all, because it was always on my mind. Going out to the football, throughout my marriage, I used to go away. I used to even go to Europe to see the football. I couldn't even go down the pub with Monica, because when I did, I got texts, come back, until I got fed up and went back. I went to a White Snake concert that I had to lie about and say that I was going to my uncle's funeral, who'd died months before. And that wasn't an enjoyable gig. In fact, White Snake were the supporting band, but so I could keep up the pretense, I only watched White Snake and I didn't see Def Leppard. I just went back to the hotel after White Snake had played and phoned her, pretending it was after the funeral. So yeah, it was very uncomfortable.
Yeah, and this is something, you get to a point, doesn't it, where someone like myself, remember, I had similar to you, John. It's like you couldn't go anywhere without there being an awful lot of grief associated with it.
Yeah.
It's the point where you end up deciding it's actually easier just to not go out. It's just easier.
Exactly.
It's just easier. You balance it, don't you? You don't want an easy life, and it's like it's just better I don't go. But it's not healthy, is it? But you just don't see it, do you, at the time? It's
it would be more unhealthy to go. Because you'd do me head in. So
yeah. No, I remember going to I had to go to a family member's funeral. It was a young guy, he was only 19, died in his sleep, and I had to go, and my ex was babysitting, so she had to babysit. And on the way to the funeral, she emailed me a divorce letter, saying that she was going to divorce me because I've left her at home with the kids. So I remember turning up at this funeral and seeing that I'd got this email from her, and then opening it, and then it was basically saying, I've consulted solicitors, I'm divorcing you because you've left. And it was obviously, she didn't do that, but she'd obviously sent it because she didn't want me to go to this funeral. And crikey, it wasn't a rock concert, it was a funeral. I wasn't going to enjoy it. So it's not even about enjoying yourself. It's just, it's just bizarre, isn't it? I don't know. That's the kind of,
I don't know what goes through their heads. I really don't.
No, it's inexplicable. But as I said, it's a feature of people who are in unhealthy relationships, isn't it? Okay, so do you? You've touched on this when you said that Monica was lying on the floor that time when she was in a lot of pain. Do you think she ever feigned illness?
Yeah. I think she feigned it a lot. There was a lot of actually, I don't say this in the book, but there was a lot of stomach aches. A lot of that. Period pain was huge for her, but it didn't stop her from going out with friends. It had stopped her from going out with me, You know, she wouldn't want to go into town with me, and you don't know what it's like, but she'd go out with friends. And the toothache, that, I mean, she got to the, she, I say in the book, she's on the floor in the kitchen. I'm really concerned about her. Then she gets up and she leaves and she goes into the street and she's walking, zigzagging all over the street. So I go up to her and I go, look, you know, you need to come back in. People will think you're on drugs, because she was moaning, walking from side to side. And that was it then. She blew up in my face that I was worried about how it would look. I'm not worried about her. So I took her to the A&E. They gave her £2.
She wasn't so ill that she couldn't shout at you then.
Yeah, exactly. But I took her to the A&E, and the A&E saw her, they gave her 2 paracetamol and sent her home. So, you know, that wasn't genuine either.
No. Good grief. Oh dear. Okay. Look, one thing I'd like to explore is this pinching thing that she used to do with you.
The playing.
Really weird. So
yeah,
she'd do this thing where she'd pinch your skin really hard or punch you in the chest.
Yeah.
And it was like, and I've even put here in quotes, for a playful reason.
Yeah.
And then if you complained and said, look, what are you doing that for? That hurts. She'd then tell you to man up, or words to that effect.
Yeah. She would. She'd say, I thought you're supposed to be a man. I'm only playing, for God's sake. And she'd just grab my skin and just twist it, or she'd punch me solid in the center of the chest, and that'd be playing to her.
What do you think she was doing there? Why?
No idea. I've no idea. I think she was just testing the boundaries to see how far she could go. You know, from the people I've spoken to, like doctors and psychologists and stuff that I've spoken to after, then that's what she seemed to be doing, pushing the boundaries, seeing how far to go. And it's sort of, what's it called? I can't think of the word now, but she's like getting ready to go further with the abuse. And it worked, because she would say man up, like you say, bring my manhood into question, say she was only playing, and it made me question my own complaints, you know, and I stopped complaining in the end, and I just let it happen. So she was right. Yeah.
The one thing I found a bit triggering in your book, for me personally, is you describe about when she gets angry, and you explain her expression.
Yeah.
And I think the words you use are things like she has this darkened look, or her eyes are black.
Yeah.
And you know, her face changes when she's on one, the kind of words that you use. And you talk about the look, and that you get used to modifying your behavior in response to this look.
Yeah.
Which I find all this really fascinating, because like I said, this is the kind of thing that I very much experienced. I used to call it her game face. So tell me about that. Tell me about what that was, how it made you feel, and how you had to modify your behavior.
Well, I'll tell you first, grooming is the word I was looking for.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So she was grooming.
Yeah.
But the look, yeah. She could, her eyes, when she was in full flight anger, her eyes would go black. Just totally black. I've never seen eyes like it, apart from in horror films. And her eyes just went completely black because her pupils were so big. But she did have a way of looking at you if you did something wrong, or you said something wrong. And she had a way of, I can't describe it, but it's a way of moving, her body language changed. And I would know what she was thinking, and I'd know that I'd done something wrong, or she perceived for me to do something wrong, or I've said something wrong. So when I saw that look, I did modify my behavior, and I modified my speech. I would lower my voice by the end of the relationship. I was talking in a whisper almost. So I'd lower my voice. My body language would become non-existent because I didn't know what to do. So I'd just be small and diminutive, and in my head it'd go down. So it'd be very submissive body language and very submissive speech patterns as well.
So were you having to concentrate on placating? Basically, it was a strategy to placate.
Yeah. Because the smaller and quieter I could be, then the more she would leave me alone.
Right. Do you think she was, when she had these moments of anger, whether it was a expression or whether it was actual, shouting or physical, whatever you describe as moments of anger,
Mm-hmm.
do you think she was in control of herself, or do you think she'd lost control of herself?
I think a lot of the time she was in control, because she'd know. I think she knew what she was doing. She knew what her language was doing. She knew what her actions was doing. There were several times when she was out of control, totally out of control. Christmas Day, for instance, 1:30 a.m, Christmas Day. She was very drunk, or supposedly drunk, and she'd just come back from a friend's house. Excuse me. And she was lying on the bed, and I'd been sitting there stroking her hair. Are you okay, dear? Are you okay? And she was so dismissive of me that I grabbed a beer out of the fridge, and I hadn't drank at that point for 14 years. So I grabbed a beer out of the fridge and I went in the lounge determined to drink it. And she'd heard me go in the fridge, and she ran into the lounge, snatched the bottle out of my hand and threw it against the wall, attacked me, and then turned round, tore the canvas that was off the wall and smashed the Christmas tree, and just went through the whole flat smashing stuff.
Oh, right.
She was out of control, out of control. And she was foaming at the mouth at this point, and her eyes were black still. And so there were points like that when she would go absolutely crazy. But a lot of the time she was very much in control.
Yeah, that's really interesting, isn't it? I mean, we'll possibly come back to that issue in the flat when there was quite a lot of destruction, wasn't there?
Yeah.
But by the way, on the drink thing, are you teetotal, John, or do you have the odd drink now and again?
I haven't drank for 20 odd years. For about 20 years. Yeah.
Okay, I should have. Yeah. You don't mind me having this Guinness then, do you? I hope I'm not triggering you with a few sips of Guinness every now and again.
No, I haven't drank for 20 years.
I do. I'm supposed to be doing dry January, but I'm failing miserably. Okay, so Monica seemed a deeply troubled character. She self-harmed too, didn't she? Or she did things.
Yeah, that again was manipulative. She locked herself in the toilet one day, and she'd taken a knife in with her. So I was really sort of, oh my God, what's going on? So I was banging on the door and begging her to come out. And when she came out, she'd got like minor little scratches on her arm, and she hadn't done anything at all. So that again was manipulative.
So it was all for effect.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. That was for messing with my head as well.
What? So obviously, volatile person got angry. What triggered her? What made her angry?
Could be anything. It could be me asking too many questions. Like, I'm trying to think of something really minor that would trigger her. She'd come in from work. And I'd hear her in the kitchen talking to her ex-boyfriend, then she'd come up and I'd say to her, so how was your day? Yeah, fine. And I'd say, what do you want to do tonight? Oh, for God's sake, will you just leave me fucking alone? You know, and that'd be like two questions, and she'd explode. And it could be anything really. What do you want to do today on the day off? That could start her. Or many a time, and this affected my when I got together with Leslie, who I'm with now. I'd go to bed and I'd lie in bed, and if I breathed too heavy, if I moved to get comfortable, if I, God help me if I snored, but any of them, she could jump out of bed, thump me in the back or thump me in the shoulder, jump out of bed, I'm going in the other fucking room if you're going to be like that, and storm off. Now, when I got together with Leslie, she said, I had to reach over and check if you were okay, because I was so still and so quiet in bed that I slept right on the edge, because Monica didn't want me to touch her half the time. So I'd be sleeping right on the edge of the bed, and I'd be very still. If I had a cramp, I'd have to stay in with that cramp. If I wanted to sneeze, I'd have to swallow it, and because it'd just get her off.
Pain.
It's funny now, it wasn't at the time.
Listen, I feel your pain. I mean, I used to say I'm always in the shit. It's just the depth that varies. So you know what I mean?
I
can't. Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, same. Hung the washing out wrong, or had the lawnmower on the wrong setting, whatever it was. It could be anything, couldn't it? But there you go. Such are these things. Okay, so basically, it could. I mean, the sort of level of anger that you experience is the sort of thing that you should be getting if you slept with a sister or something and she found out. Do you know what I mean? It's that kind of level of anger for doing something that actually is just, like you say, literally just breathing.
Yeah.
So astonishing. Now, at one point in the book, now in terms of timeline, I might have gone off a bit here, but I think, correct me if I'm wrong, at one point you sort of leave Monica, but you go back again, I think, don't you? Yeah. And I think you've gone back to Monica, and there seems to be a suggestion that you're trying to empathize with you. In fact, I'll just quickly turn to the page because I think it's quite interesting what you've written. Just bear with me. So you basically said that you're kind of empathizing with her and saying that you acknowledge that things couldn't be perfect, that there would be things, flashpoints every now and again.
Yeah.
But you also knew that she couldn't help it, and that you were there to help her through it. And that you're from a care background, you've worked in care, you're a very experienced care worker. So you're used to dealing with challenging behavior. So you're obviously, as a carer, you've got that sympathy and, motivation to want to help people. So that's really interesting, isn't it? So what do you think about that now, looking back, in terms of that approach and that thoughts about that empathizing with her and seeing that you could help her in some way?
I think that now, looking back, she couldn't be helped because she's never going to change. And I know this from seeing her after we broke up. I saw her with a new guy in a shop, and the guy was walking behind her. She was having a go at him, head down, and I just thought, she's not changed at all. And this guy is going through exactly the same shit as I went through. So witnessing that, I know that I couldn't change her anyway. I mean, Leslie is a very anxious person, and I know I can help Leslie. I know I can keep everything nice and calm, and it's not manipulative at all. And she's there for me as much as I am for her. And
it's that reciprocity, isn't it? That mutual, you help her, she helps you.
Yeah. But Monica wasn't there for nobody but herself.
Yeah.
Whatever she could get, she went for.
A narcissist, basically.
Yeah, big time.
Okay. Did she ever manipulate you with regards to money or your economic well-being? That there is a suggestion of that in the book. So can you tell me what you feel about that? Do you think she ever used money or your economic status to try and manipulate you at all?
It's something I left out of the book for because of time, because of complication, with everything else that went on. Yeah. But she took because she was Romanian. She asked me to get a credit card in my name, which was totally maxed out before she left, and left me with the debt of that. Apart from that, she constantly said that she wanted me to support her and her son, even though I had nothing to do with son, even though her son lived in Romania. But she said to me at one point, and I've got an 11-minute recording of her just verbally abusing me totally. And within that 11-minute recording, she said, me and my son are going to starve because of you. So I was to blame for everything, and his son wasn't starving. His son was fine in Romania, not living a great life, but he was fine. And she had tons of money, so she was never going to starve.
Yeah, that's interesting. You said that audio recording. So tell me about that then. Why did you need to do that?
Because I thought I did, like, that's why I ended up taking photographs of the flat that was smashed up. And I did the recording because I was in touch with my mate Wayne, who knew what was going on. He was the only one that knew what was going on. And I wanted to give Wayne evidence of, like, look, this is what I'm going through.
Because you think you're going mad, you're gaslighted, but you actually think to yourself, did I really just hear that? Did that really say yes?
I said to Wayne, I said when I sent him the recording, I was like, basically, am I going mad? I don't think I'll use them words, but I wanted to know if I was in the wrong. If I was, was I the catalyst for this anger? So, that's why I recorded it, and it ended up like, I thought it was going to be like, he was shouting at me for a couple of minutes, but it ended up being 11 minutes long of total verbal abuse. At the end of it, I started shouting, and that's where I thought I'd gone wrong. I thought, oh no, I'm to blame as well. This is just an argument. But my mate Wayne said, there's no way that I would have kept my cool. No way at all. Being battered and battered and battered like that for 11 minutes solid. There's no way you could keep your cool.
And I take it would have been too dangerous. She would have known that you'd recorded, because it'd just be too dangerous. You'd be in a lot of trouble if she
my
knew.
God, yeah. Oh, if she'd known that I'd recorded, Jesus, yeah.
No, good for you for having the wherewithal to do that, to be honest, because that's what I did. It kept me sane doing that, because I thought I was going insane. Because you just get gassed. What is happening to you is some of the things, John, you've described in this interview so far. It's just bizarre, isn't it? I mean, some of the behaviours that you're talking about, it really is.
Yeah,
it's weird.
And when
you're in the middle of that, when you're in a relationship, when you're in the middle of that, you can't make sense of it. You can't. No. You're in the middle of a shitstorm. So there's no way you're gonna. So I think doing things like that, that's certainly one of my top tips. Is keep a diary. Or I didn't keep a diary because it wasn't safe to write things down, because paper can be found, but discrete recordings are a method in which you can start to. So it's interesting you did that. Did you do a lot of that or just some of, was that just the
I,
one
I,
off? Or?
I recorded it twice, one of which I accidentally deleted. And I wish I'd got the other recording, because the other recording was, she came into me and she said, "Come with me." So I was like, get the recording ready on my phone, because I knew I was in for a bollocking. She stormed off down the corridor. I followed her. She went into the bathroom. Look, I can't see anything. Look, can't see anything. I said, I don't know what you're talking about. The toilet seat, it's up. And I said, yeah. And she said, it needs to be down, needs to be down. I said, well, stupidly, I said, then just put it down. No. Boom, massive explosion.
The old toilet seat argument.
Yeah, yeah.
Chestnut. Yeah.
But she said, that I'm to put the toilet seat down, but don't put the lid down, just the toilet seat.
Yeah.
So not to put everything down, just the toilet seat. Because she needs to be able to go in there, she said, and this was on the recording, and I wish I'd kept it. I wish I'd deleted it. But she said she needs to go in there in the dark and be able to just sit down and do what she needs to do without any fuss. And that was my fault, apparently.
Speechless.
Your side now, imagine me at the
time. Okay, so again, I'd just like to refer back to the book quickly. So you said, so we're getting sort of good 3/4 way through here. So
yeah.
After all this time of being together, I was still struggling to figure Monica out.
Yeah.
What made her tick? How could I help her with her problems? What could truly make her happy? Did you ever work her out? I think we've established that you didn't really.
No,
so,
no, because every time I thought I had, she moved the goalposts.
Yeah.
So I could never figure her out.
Yeah. I think what's fascinating too is you talk about where you have tried to directly address things with her in obviously in a very tactful way, obviously. It always comes back to your fault. So if you say to us something like, oh, you really shouldn't be doing this, Monica, she'd then turn it round and start to talk about your faults, and it's your, you're the problem and you're the issue. Classic narcissism, that, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, one of her favourite sayings was, "Look what you made me do."
Yeah.
So she'd hit me, she'd scream, she'd smash something, and it'd be, "Look what you made me do." And everything was my fault. Everything.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean, there's, like I say, she kept changing the goalposts.
Yeah.
So I was never going to win, no matter what.
Yeah. Look what you did to me by hitting me. Her reply is, well, if you did what I told you to, I wouldn't have to hit you.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah, the words. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was like, I wouldn't, if you'd behaved in this way, then I wouldn't get angry. So, but then you'd end up behaving that way and you'd still make her angry.
This business where the flat gets smashed up, so she's lost control and it's ballistic, proper head loss type stuff. How was that dealt with? What just briefly talk us through that, and didn't you get the police involved at some point? Did you?
She got the going back to before we shared the flat that she smashed up. She got the police involved because we'd had a big fight, and at one point during the fight, she said, "I want to stab you in the eye."
Yeah.
And she stormed off, and I went into the kitchen. I was so crazy. I went into the kitchen, I grabbed a knife, and I said, "Then do it. Do it then." And I offered her the knife, and she told me to fuck off. And I said, "If you want to see me bleed, there, there, I'm bleeding, look. And I just kept slashing my hand. And she said, don't fucking do that. You'll bleed all over the floor, and this is a rented place. And me being fucking stupid, slash my hand, and I grab a tea towel to stop me bleeding on the floor. So I'm still obeying what she says. And she called the police, and the police turned up in 15 minutes.
Okay.
15 minutes. They took her outside. They took me to one side. They asked me what had gone on. I said we'd had an argument. I said, she's hit me, she's punched me, she spat at me, and she's threatened. She said to me, I want to stab you in the eye. And they said, I quote, as long as you're all right now, sir. That was it. They let her go. She was on her way to her friends outside at this point. So they checked my hand over and left. That was it. Wow.
So there was an incident there where something had gone on, a knife was involved, albeit you self-harmed with it.
Yeah.
But their attitude was, well, you're all right now.
Yeah. And I said that she kicked me, she punched me, she spat at me, and she said, I want to stab you in the eye. And they were like, as long as you're all right now. That was it.
And do you know what she told them? What her side was?
No idea. No idea. I only know sort of bits, even when I reported it to the police after, which like you'll probably get to in a bit. I know bits of what she told them because they wouldn't tell me what she'd said then either.
So just complete the story with the police involvement then. What's your experience as a male victim then with police? So because didn't they have you in for questioning or something?
I went to the police after we broke up. And I went to the police and I said, and it was, people say to me, why did you go to the police after you broke up? Why didn't you go at the time? But your head's too much of a mess at the time. So still vulnerable, but clear-headed. And my mate Wayne said, you've got to go and report this. So I went to them and I reported it. And they said, oh, well, you know, it's been more than 6 months. So when I see on telly that like people have been reporting stuff 30 years later and they've taken that seriously, but it's been more than 6 months, so we can't investigate. We can only investigate the latest incident, which was the Christmas incident where she smashed the flat up. And she'd bit my hand and I'd got a photograph. I'd taken a photograph of all the flat and I'd taken a photograph of the bite mark on my hand. So I gave them all that evidence. I was in therapy at the time. So I said, you can talk, I give you permission to talk to my therapist. I give you permission to talk to my doctor who'd put me on medication. I gave him the 11-minute recording of her screaming her head off at me, the photos of the smashed up flat, and the photo of my bite mark on my hand. Okay, we'll have her in. So they brought her in. Then he took me back down. They asked me to go back down again. And she said, the bite mark on my hand was self-inflicted. So they believed that. They said the photo, they didn't even mention the recording of her screaming and shouting at me. They completely dismissed it. The photos of the flat smashed up, and I believe you've seen the photos of my flat smashed up.
I have, yeah.
The police said that was evidence of things knocked over. Now, you know, actually at the end of this video, I will put the photos if the smashed up flat.
Yeah, do that. Yeah.
Viewers, you tell me. If it's things knocked over. And go on, sorry.
No, go on. You.
And yeah, so they completely dismissed it, all of it. And then she had stuff in the garage that needed collecting. And I tried to phone her several times to come and collect the stuff. But every time I heard a voice, I panicked and put the phone down. I could not speak to her.
Yeah.
She reported that as harassment. The police took me down to the station, read me my rights, and threatened my career. Because if I'd have been charged,
Just basically warned you off.
yeah, if I'd have been charged with harassment, I would have it would have gone on my DBS,
It would have gone against you big time.
for my care.
Yeah.
So it would have gone heavily against me. So they threatened my career. The police threatened my career. West Mercia police threatened my career. They took her word over mine, read me my rights, recorded the conversation, and sent her a copy of the recording.
Really?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely disgraceful. Yeah.
So if we turn the tables and put you in the position that you're the female, and what happened to you is now they would have dealt with you differently, wouldn't they?
Oh God, yeah, I would have been arrested. If they'd have walked into that house when I cut myself, if roles had been reversed and she said I threatened to stab her in the eye, I would have been arrested.
Yeah, and that's what a gender narrative does
Yeah,
to how the services deal with
100%.
victims,
Yeah, 100%.
because they are trained that the significant majority of victims are female. And
Yeah.
we both know that, John, that's not true.
Yeah.
Okay, so well, look, we're at a stage now where it's really taken its toll on you mentally. Why do you think it takes us so long as victims to leave our abusers? Why do we put up with this for so long?
You know, that's something that I've been considering ever since I left. Ever since we broke up. I think it has to do with the love bombing, the shame, the fear of being alone. In some cases, I had nowhere to go. I'd left my wife for her, so I had nowhere to go. The fear of being alone, but when you talk about male abusers and female abused, there's a cycle of abuse where there's the abuse, the build up, the abuse, the apology, the honeymoon period, and then start again.
Yeah.
In my case, Monica said to me on many occasions, "This is me. Get used to it. It's only going to get worse." So why did I not leave? I don't know. I have no idea.
And again, it's a sensitive question, because it infers that that by asking that question, I'm victim blaming, and it's a really controversial question, that. But I think it's
a question that
valid.
Everybody gets asked.
It's a valid, but I think it's important the person that's
100%.
asking the question understands that when you are in the midst of abuse, you can't. The risk that sometimes the leaving is more risky than staying. Basically,
Yeah.
that's the.
And your head's not right anyway. Your head's not right. You're not thinking straight.
No.
You're too messed up.
No.
And you think it's your fault half the time, because that's how they've got you. They've got you believing that you're to blame for all this.
Okay. Well, look. Let's talk now. We're getting to the tail end of the interview now, John. So we're getting there. Can you just tell us about your recovery? So I know that that spirituality has played a part in your recovery. Would you mind just telling us a little bit about that?
Yeah. The whole thing, as you know, messed my head up, and it culminated in my dad passing away, and that just shattered me into a million different pieces. My mind was just destroyed by that. It was the last straw. And he passed away in the September, and in the November, I went to India and Nepal. All I did was to get away. All I did was to get away from it all. And I'd already started to look into Buddhism. I'd already started meditating, so it seemed the natural place to go. While I was there, I saw like nobody moaned about their life. Nobody complained about the past. Nobody was like, oh, I can't wait for the future. Everybody was living in the moment. And I spoke to so many amazing people who I'm still in contact with today. And they were saying things like, trying to love a negative person is like standing in the river trying not to get wet, which is so simple,
Good, yeah.
but
yeah,
so effective. Yeah. And this guy, one of the guys said to me, Depeche said to me, think of life as walking. He said, to walk, you have to leave one footstep behind. If you don't leave that footstep behind, you'll stand in the same place forever. So you have to leave something behind to move forward. Which again was like so simple, but brilliant, you know. And the way that people live their lives there, and the way they showed me through their actions and through their words how to live my life. When I came back, I was in therapy at the time. And when I came back, I walked into my therapist's office and said, I don't need you. I don't need you anymore. And she said, can you come back next week, John? Because like this might be like post-holiday cheer.
Yeah.
So I went back the next week and she asked me a couple of questions and she went, I don't know what happened to you over there, but you don't need me anymore.
Wow.
And I completely changed. My whole outlook on life was changed. And not only did I think, I'm never going to let anybody put me through that again, I thought, I need to change. I need to be better. I need to come back and I need to give. I don't need to take. I don't need to be selfish anymore. I need to come back and I need to give. And the first thing I did was go and volunteer, as well as working. I went and volunteered in a homeless shelter. And it was just amazing. And like me giving now to others and helping others, me with this show, helping as many people as I can. The books helped a lot of people, you know, and I think that's my way forward now. I think that's the way that I heal. Spirituality is like huge in my life, and I've got just on my mantle there, I've got an altar that I give offerings to every day. I stand at my window. I've got a little balcony, and I stand on my balcony and I thank the universe every day for a new day and for Leslie. So I'm very, very grateful for what I have. So all that is like led to me being totally healed. And what I can do now is just help others heal.
Gosh, that's very powerful, John.
It really was. Powerful. It was.
So that's clearly a key for yourself. Anything else in terms of recovery, in terms of tips you might give somebody in terms of trying to come out the other end of that mental turmoil?
I think, like I say, you've got to live in the moment. The past doesn't exist apart from in your own head. So once you've separated from your abuser, whatever you're blaming your abuser for at that moment, after you've gone, if you have nothing to do with them, that's in your head. And it takes a long time and a lot of hard work to recover from that. But you have to believe that the past doesn't exist apart from in here. And everything external, you have no control over. The only thing you have control over is your reaction to things external. So if you can love yourself and control inside, which again takes a lot of practice and a lot of hard work, then that's the way you can heal, because they can't hurt you if you don't let them.
Yeah.
And please speak out. You need to speak out, because the book, that was very cathartic for me. Doing the show is very cathartic for me. And that's what you need. You need to get it out. Own it. Own what happened to you. because that's the only way you can get over it.
Excellent. That's great. And just before we finish on that, so that's a kind of post-abuse recovery tips. What would you say to somebody that might be listening or watching this, that's in the shitstorm that you've been in, head's all messed up, and they're in an unhealthy relationship? Is there anything that, if you could go back in time and stand next to your past self, is there something you'd whisper in your ear? What would you say? What's the best advice you could give to somebody that's in it now, in that mess?
I'd scream in my ear, get the fuck out. You need to prepare. You need to prepare. Like they tell women this on women's organisations' websites. They tell them this, and it's true for men as well. You need to prepare to leave if it gets too much. So prepare a bag. Keep a bag hidden away with a few clothes in it, and a few toiletries in it, so you can get out. Record if you can. Like you say, writing things down is a bit dangerous, but if you know you can get away with it, then do it. If you even have a doubt that you can get away with it, don't do it. Don't put anything down in writing. So secretly record when you can. Talk to people. Talk to somebody about it. It doesn't matter if you think, oh my God, it's all me. Well, talk to other people and they'll tell you if it's all you. So find somebody who you can talk to, and if you can't find somebody who is a friend or a family member, then talk to Mankind Initiative. Give them a call.
Yeah.
Give Break the Silence a call. Okay, just drop me an email. John James at FTD Talk.com. So drop me an email. But you need to say it. You need to talk to somebody, because it'll drive you mad if you don't.
Yeah, no, I agree. You've got to share it. You've got to find a way to share
100%. And there's many people out there who are exactly the same as you. Never think you're alone. Never think you're alone. There's so many people out there.
No, well, we know there are thousands, John. So
800,000 men a year report domestic violence, and how many don't talk about it? So you're not alone.
No. It's been quite a journey for you, John. Can you just finish off by telling us where you are now in your life, how things are for you?
Bloody happy, mate.
You look it.
I'm married to the most wonderful woman in the world. Leslie is fucking amazing, and she's been through her own shit. She's been through nightmares, absolute nightmares. And so I'm very, very happy. I'm very, very happy with the faith that I have. That's keeping me sane. That's keeping me calm. I'm currently writing my second book, Voices in the Darkness. That's about everybody. That's about other people. And it's also bits and bobs that didn't go in from the darkness as well. And I invited Monica to be a part of, because I'm also making a documentary about male victims of abuse. And I invited Monica to talk on the documentary, no agenda, say whatever she wants. And she sent me an email, which was a treasure trove of narcissism. So in the book is the email that she sent me, and a psychologist's breakdown of that. So that's going to be.
Does she know about the book? Does she know about the book?
She knows about From the Darkness. Yeah. I sent her a copy. So she knows about that. And the show, the FTD Talk, which started off as male victims of domestic violence, and I realised that there's a lot of things that people don't talk about. So I've got guests upcoming who are going to talk about. They're a male survivor of breast cancer. They're a male survivor of anorexia. I've got a guy coming on who suffers from schizophrenia. So it's yeah, it's quite
Well,
exciting. And
well,
Erin
okay.
Pizzi is going to be talking to me on the show as well.
That would be brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. It's great. I've, as I said, I've followed you carefully, John, and it's been really good to watch you grow.
Thanks,
Well
mate.
done to you. And on behalf of all your listeners stroke watchers, thank you so much for what you do. Don't ever underestimate the difference that you make. And I think you've even said yourself, if just one person can benefit from it or get themselves out of something unpleasant, then it's definitely worth it. So been lovely privileged to interview you. It's great. So thank you very much.
Cheers. Thank you. In fact, thank you to everybody who's supported the show, everybody who's read the book. I've had an amazing response, and thank you everybody.
Bless you, mate. All right. Great.
Cheers, mate.